Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to Watch One. Thanks for logging on. Today we're looking at the Patek Philippe 3919. You can see this 33.5mm yellow gold Patek Philippe Calatrava on our website watchyouwant.com. You can purchase it there. And if you enjoy these videos, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, Watch You Want Inc. You can also click on the card in the upper right hand corner of this video at any time to see our full listing for this watch with complete accessories, additional photographs, and pricing. On my wrist, 6 1/3 inches, 16 centimeters in circumference, the Patek Philippe 3919 is the very image of the 1980s and 90s Calatrava line. During this period, the Clou de Paris bezel design and the straight lugs, exemplified by this 3919, really became symbolic of the Calatrava line for many who were discovering it for the first time, which is to say, many newly minted luxury watch collectors. And while the traditional blended lug Calatrava still has a robust following, there remains an equally robust parallel following that believes, to this day, the watch you see here is the very image of a Patek Philippe simple dress watch. Now, the watch is quite compact in the traditional sense. It's 33.5mm across the round of the case. When you incorporate the lug-to-lug measurement, it is 39mm. So there is no wrist that cannot wear this watch with elegance in a formal sense. Moreover, the watch is only 6.5mm thick, so it really does nestle down onto the wrist, flies right under any kind of dress cuff or tight formal sleeve. Very easy to wear. Now, it's matched by a beautiful high gloss monotone stitch alligator leather strap, completely unbolstered, wonderfully calf skin on the bottom, wonderfully treated, very soft, supple. You can also see that the watch features the original Patek Philippe 18-karat yellow gold pin buckle. It's a beautiful and traditional element that complements the case nicely. You can see it is not a default design. It is faceted, polished, and quite self-consciously styled in its own right. It has a great deal of charisma, and this is a very charming traditional reference. Now, the hobnail bezel, or as it's called, Clou de Paris, is turned on a rose lathe. It's a treatment typically seen on the dials of watches. To see it rendered on a bezel is a little bit of a treat, and when you do look at it under magnification, you can see that this particular hobnail is actually a pyramid style, where the individual knobs of the hobnail are actually small pyramids. They have facets. They're quite beautifully detailed, and the rose lathe itself, guided by an artisan's hand, I should mention, is really a very traditional 19th century way of working metal in a repeatable fashion. So right around the bezel, beautifully wrought by the rose lathe, a gorgeous introduction to a dial that is simplicity itself. Now, segueing from the pyramid to the dial is a white lacquer. It features lacquered, painted, stylized, but minimally stylized Roman numerals, minimal graphics. This is far from the oversized and overabundant printing that you find on many contemporary references, sadly including those of Patek as well. And then there's a very minimalist constant seconds track at 6 o'clock. And it should be mentioned that the hands you're looking at are in fact white gold. The treatment that you see, which is not quite white gold and not quite black, almost an in-between, is actually a nickel blackening technique that Patek uses. That's why when you see these almost gray foy-style hands, in this case, on many Patek references, what you're actually looking at is the nickel blackening technique that Patek Philippe uses to heat treat and color these hands. Underneath, they are white gold. And speaking of what lies beneath, this watch is a front loader, and it features a split stem, which is to say that when the watchmaker services the watch, everything comes off and out the front of the watch. The case back is completely monoblock. Now, the soldered-on lugs, beautifully finished. You can barely see the seam between the case back and the lugs themselves, but they were soldered on, welded, and then finished to remove any evidence of the original welding. They segue into a case back that covers a caliber 215. Patek Philippe's 215, unlike the caliber 177 ultra-thin that we explored a little earlier on the channel, is an in-house caliber, 2.55mm thick, quite slim. It's a 4 Hz Gyromax free-sprung balance design created by Patek Philippe for simple dress watches. Now, the Gyromax free-sprung balance is a great mechanical engineering heritage element of Patek dating back to the early 1950s, and it's worth mentioning that the caliber 215 was the first 4 Hz, or first 28,800 vibration per hour movement to employ Gyromax. It's also Geneva seal, and you could see when you actually happen to open the watch, in the rare occasions when you take this front loader apart, that all of the elements, though you can't see them, are finished to the Geneva hallmark standards. So you have beautiful anglage across all the bridges, tight and even perlage across the base plate. You see that all the wheels are beautifully grained around their circumference, but also that the spokes themselves have been chamfered, and all of the screws polished on their heads, chamfered in their slots. Even the pilots underneath the threaded stalk are polished to a mirror shine. The watch has a 35 to 45 hour power reserve, manually wound, and it represents traditional Patek Philippe watchmaking at its best. A slim and versatile reference, it's also a wonderfully traditional piece. If you lived in the 1980s or 90s and you were a luxury watch enthusiast during those times, chances are this is how you imagine the Patek Philippe Calatrava, a classic in its own right and a true cult watch. You can see this Patek Philippe 3919J in yellow gold on our website, watchyouwant.com.